I had no online teaching experience. I didn't even know what Zoom was. So when we were told at the beginning of the semester that we're moving our classes online, I was stressed out, to say the least. And worse, I am an introvert, the kind that avoids making or receiving calls if I can help it. So you can imagine what was going on in my head when I realized I had to teach through video calls. We had about 2 weeks to get organized. In that time, I read about online teaching, some tips and tricks about how to use this format. Also, some of my colleagues and I practiced using Zoom, including how to mute and unmute, how to raise hands, how to be the host, how to share our screen properly, how to put students into breakout groups, how to use the whiteboard, among other things. Although this was undoubtedly helpful, having 20 students looking at you and expecting you to know what you're doing at each turn was a different experience. Predictably, throughout the semester, my students and I had lots of challenges. Of course, there were the minor ones such as having weak internet connection or the mic or camera not working. The bigger struggles for me, however, were how to keep the class dynamic, how to keep the students engaged, and how to monitor their progress. For the students, many of them had to get used to laptops as they are more comfortable using their phones and tablets. Also, they had to get accustomed to sitting the whole day staring at their screens as they had up to 5 classes on some days. I think at one point, a student even said, "My eyes are dying." All of these challenges stretched us in different ways. To address the student engagement issue, I tried different kinds of activities. For example, to practice pronunciation, I prepared PDF documents with minimal pairs. I shared the screen, then students had to annotate or stamp the words they think I was targeting. We also watched videos, read news articles, and used them in our discussions. For these activities, we used breakout rooms a lot. This way, the sharing was less daunting and also made it easier for me to connect with and monitor the students. As for the students, I think it's good that they gained significant computer skills. They were able to practice typing and they learned about other applications that will definitely be useful when they start working. "2020 has indeed kick-started a rude or at least a hasty transition, not only in terms of how I do my work, but also how I view my work as a language teacher. To teach language is to teach culture. That's one of the things that stuck with me since I was a student myself. So from then, I've tried to incorporate relevant and timely materials into my lessons, and given everything that's been happening, I felt it was even more important to talk about what's going on in the world. Certainly, it wasn't always easy. There were certain topics that I didn't know how to approach as I didn't feel I was equipped to talk about them. For example, when the riots broke out in the US, I was at a loss. I had a number of international students in my class, including an American, and I was unsure about how to talk about the topic, if at all. However, before I knew it, some of the students were already talking about what was happening in the US then. Eventually, though, I realized I need not have all the answers. After all, we are going through all these new things together. One new activity I tried was a weekly journal assignment. I asked my students to choose a news story they were interested in, local or international. Then they had to summarize the story in their own words and share their opinion about it. So for this assignment, the students covered a wide variety of topics, from the racial tensions to the opening of the Disney parks and the Japanese government's go-to travel campaign amid this pandemic. Overall, I think it was useful for a number of reasons. For one thing, they were able to practice how to summarize and express their opinions, not to mention how to properly cite their sources. As for me, it gave me an idea of where they are relative to the current events. I think it's much better than me perpetually dictating the topics we're going to discuss. This way, the students bring in the topic and we talk about them without needing to have any kind of resolution in the end. Because really, for many of these questions that 2020 has brought upon us, there are no clear resolutions, at least not yet. This spring semester alone, we did online teaching, some face-to-face teaching, and because of heavy rains at one point here in Kyushu, online and face-to-face teaching at the same time. I guess my biggest realization as a result of all these are that 1. Realities can change in an instant, as 2020 clearly and relentlessly demonstrates. And 2. That teaching in particular is such an emotional job. Many times this semester, the moment I turned off Zoom, I felt so drained and frustrated. Moving forward, I've resolved to be more flexible, open-minded, and empathic so I can adjust to whatever is in front of me. Also, I think it's important to keep in mind that there will always be good and bad days, and more often than not, there will be a chance to fix whatever mess I may create along the way. I know these aren't particularly novel ideas, but I think it's so easy to forget, especially for new or young teachers, and we sometimes beat ourselves up for it, which in turn can affect our teaching. For me, as with the rest of the world, 2020 has been a year full of challenges, questions, learnings, and a few wins. My hope is that we all emerge from this Jumanji-like year a bit better than when we started.